Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me. This is Sierra from Sierra T Designs, and I have the June Simon Says stamp kit. So we're going to take a quick look at what comes in the kit, and then we will make some cards. So it does come with the new color of the pouch. So that's pretty cool. I think this is Citrine. I think that's their new color, which I love these pouches. I think they're super useful. And it also does have a container of the Stickles glitter gel in Starshine. So that's very bright. That'll be a lot of fun. And then we'll pull out the contents here of this little pouch and see what we've got. All right. So we do have a candy like we always do. I think it's orange flavored this time, so that's cool. And then a package of these holographic envelopes. These are awesome. I actually ordered some of these a little while ago, so I have a few already, but they're just so neat. I like looking at them. And then of course we have the next 5 off code, so you can use that if you'd like. And then we have a die that I believe says big hugs. Yeah, it does. A little die that says big hugs. And then the pattern paper. So take a quick look at all the sheets. So obviously it is birthday themed, which is pretty cool. That's pretty cute. This is neat. I could see doing some fussy cutting and making some scene cards. You guys know I'm really trying hard to use the pattern papers, which is a bit of a struggle for me, but we'll see what we come up with. There's some really cute scenes already kind of going on in these. This is neat. Oh, and then some wood. That's cool. And then another one. That's neat. Oh, and then a whole bunch of sentiments. Hey, that's going to be fun for some pattern paper cards. Cool. So there's a lot of really cute 6x6 sheets there. And then of course the stamp set. I believe Christina Warner illustrated this stamp set, but it's stunning as always. I'm really excited that it's birthday themed because I never seem to have enough birthday cards. So that's really cool. And then this I'm really excited about. So the T-square ruler from Simon came in the kit, this kit. And I actually was going to order this. And then I didn't for whatever reason. I don't remember why I didn't. And then I was really sad that I didn't when I seen Amy R use it from Prairie Paper and Ink. She was using one and I was really bummed that I hadn't ordered one. And then this kit got announced. So then I was like, oh, cool, perfect. So I am going to get it. I think this is going to be great. It has a really thick bevel here. So for like thicker cards when you're doing like foam and stuff, like I think this is going to be awesome. So I'm really excited to add that to my stash. And then we've got a stencil here with a big sun on it. So that's pretty cool. Be really perfect for a slimline card or anything else really. Once it's that big, you could use it for anything. And then we have the idea sheet, and there's some beautiful ideas on here. Look at that blending. Oof. Stunning. And then we have our cardstocks. So we have, let's see, I think we have Schoolhouse Red, Green Apple, Schoolhouse Red, I think. Let me check. Green Leaf. Oh, Lipstick Red, sorry. Lipstick Red. And Neenah 110. And then we also got a sheet of Tim Holtz, their dot adhesive. So I've never actually used adhesive like this. I'm a very like liquid glue type of person, but we'll have to try this with the die cuts and see what it's all about. But yeah, so that's everything that came in the kit. So let's jump into making some cards. All right, so let's jump right into the card making. So for the first card, I'm going to use some pattern paper. Actually, throughout this kit, I use a bunch of the pattern paper, which is a bit of an oddity for me, but I'm trying to kind of branch out of my normal card making. So I have a piece of silver glitter cardstock. Now, this isn't in the kit. This came from my stash. And this is a piece of glitter well, it's not really cardstock, it's paper that I've had for quite a while because it is quite thin and I'm not a big fan of it. So I have to be really careful with how I use it because it doesn't hold up. So with layering, which is what I'm going to do here with it, it works perfectly because it's adhered between 2 thick layers. So it's not really going to matter, but I wouldn't buy this again if I had known the weight when I ordered it originally, which is completely on me, but I brought in some nested circle dies, and you can see that I have kind of 5 that go in order, so smallest to the biggest one that I have here. And I'm going to cut out the 5 from the pattern paper that I've chosen from the kit, and then that glitter cardstock as well. And I am going to cut the circles out of the center of the glitter cardstock panel that I'm going to use. Now again, I'm not too worried about it, but you will see like it's super thin. So when I go to glue it down, I actually struggle a little bit because I can't hold it rigid to line it up, but we got there and it's okay. You're going to see it here in a second, actually, that this is very, very thin paper, but it works and it's beautiful. Like the glitter is really stunning. It's just, I really like thick cardstock and I'm pretty picky in my cardstock. So this one's kind of funny in how thin it is, but it worked for what I was using it for. And I just had this idea to kind of use circles across a panel. I just thought this would look really neat. And it does, actually. I quite like how this card turned out. So I really enjoyed it, but I am adhering my layers down here, and I have about 1/8 of an inch between each layer. That is kind of my preferred layering measurement. So there's about 1/8 of an inch between the base and the silver glitter cardstock, and then about 1/8 of an inch between the silver glitter cardstock and the HammerMill piece that I'm using right here. HammerMill, again, is one of my preferred cardstocks, and everything I use is always linked and listed down below if you're ever interested in anything that I've used. So if I miss something, just ask me a question. I'm more than happy to answer all the comments. Sometimes it takes me a hot minute to get back to everybody, but I do always respond to them eventually. And then I'm going to adhere my circles down on there. So you kind of see that I've kind of laid them out in the way that I wanted them to look. And I think that I get them pretty close back into where I wanted them once I glue them down. But there's no real rhyme or reason to this card other than it's kind of fun. And I'm kind of trying to challenge myself to use pattern paper more and differently. I mean, I tend to lean towards just layering it up and kind of creating like a mini slimline card and layering it up, and that's all I kind of do. And I kind of do that same thing over and over, and I'm trying really hard to kind of break out of that box and do things a bit differently. I don't want my cards to get stagnant and you guys to be, bored by what I'm creating. I want it to be kind of a fun experience. So I do try to challenge myself to kind of get new ideas out there that we can kind of do different techniques together. So I challenge myself with these kits, and sometimes the cards turn out really well and sometimes they turn out a bit poorly, but I think that these ones turned out pretty good. So I am going to stamp down my sentiment now, and this is a sentiment from that stamp set, and it says, "I'm so happy for you, I'm floating," which I thought was pretty cute. So I stamped that down in Iced Spruce Distress Oxide ink just on the bottom corner there, which I left open for the sentiment because I thought it would look really cool there. And that is the first card. I like how it turned out. I think that it's different. I'd love to know what you guys think about these cards when we get to the end there after we've gone through them all. You can tell me if you had a favorite. I'd love to hear that, actually. I'd love to know if you guys have favorites of the cards that I make. So, and then for the second one, this is another A2. I pretty much stuck with A2 cards in this. There is one mini slimline as well, but mostly they're A2 cards. And I took another pattern paper. This is that balloon pattern paper, and the green pattern or cardstock from the kit, and I cut them out with the stitched rectangles that I have. They are like a nested set as well, and I used the 2 largest ones. And then I'm going to stamp my sentiment onto some vellum. This is a heavyweight vellum. It's really good for heat embossing and die cutting and all the things, so it's pretty much my favorite. I'm pretty sure it's Bazzill. And I'm just going to heat set that with some white embossing powder. And this one says "floating by to say happy birthday," which I thought was, again, really cute, and especially with those balloons, I mean, that's pretty much perfect. So I did white heat set it, and then I'm going to trim it down with my Tim Holtz trimmer. And I just trimmed it into kind of a square. I would have used one of those nested rectangles if I could, but of course none of them fit because this is more square than rectangle. So sadly I couldn't add that cool stitching detail, but I still think that this turned out pretty cool, and I just think it's like a fun card. I'm going to bring in some of the pattern paper that's more like ephemera, and I use that on it as well. So I thought that that was kind of a cool idea. So here I'm going to show you that I'm going to adhere my layers, and here I didn't make a mistake, but I kind of messed up. So this is a stitched rectangle, right? So it is perforated on the edges, which is how you get your stitching. But I hit it with my hand when I went to adhere it. Here you're going to see in a sec here, as I'm kind of laying it down and trying to adhere it to the green piece. My hand hits that edge and it ripped the stitching. So I can't lift it. It's already starting to adhere. So I take my Barely Art glue, which has a really thin tip. So any glue that you have that has a super thin tip, this would work with. And I'm going to put the glue underneath the area where it's lifted, just in that little area. And this is why I'm using a thin tip so it doesn't just ooze out the side. And then I just used my finger and pushed it back in. And it adheres quickly enough that I'm able to kind of just force it back against that piece of cardstock. So it doesn't even look like there's a mistake there. And now I don't even think you can tell. Like I'm looking at the card as I do this voiceover. You can't even tell that that's happened. But, oh, sorry, I just hit the mic. But, so that was kind of my quick fix for what happened there. You can't tell, it doesn't really matter, but I try to be a little more gentle with the stitching because it is perforated. It does like to rip on me on occasion, and I'm a little bit too aggressive with my cards, I guess. So I do have a tendency towards hitting it and then ripping it. But and then I did cut out, oh no, sorry, I haven't cut them out yet. I'm going to adhere my sentiment down, and I just put really thin lines of glue with that Barely Art glue behind the lettering on the vellum. Now, if you have a Xyron sticker maker, you could use that. I do have one, but not big enough to fit this through it. So I just adhered it down just with my glue, and the glue dries matte, so you can't even see it. A little bit came out behind the letters, but you can barely see it, that it doesn't even matter. So it worked out okay. And then here I'm going to cut out 3 of the butterflies from this pattern paper that's more like ephemera. I spend a lot of time fussy cutting things, so this really doesn't bother me, but you could have brought in like a stamp or die set that had butterflies on it to get the same effect. It's just that I try really hard not to deviate from the kits too much, usually just with dies because they generally aren't included, although I'm thinking that a die was included in this kit and I completely forgot about it. So I didn't even use it. I forgot it was in the kit until right now. But that's okay. So I'm just going to fussy cut out these 3 butterflies. I'm just going to show you with the first one. And I'm going to adhere them down kind of around that sentiment. And I did weigh the sentiment down with some acrylic blocks just to make sure that it adhered flat. I didn't want it to warp at all. Not that it normally does, but you know, I'd rather be safe than sorry. So I did kind of use it to adhere it down. And then I'm going to put some Barely Art glue just in the center of each butterfly so I can prop up the wings and get a little bit more dimension. So that is the second card I have for you guys. So I know that I've talked to you guys about doing an introduction video, and I'm about to record that video actually, I think probably tomorrow. So if you have any last minute questions for me that you want me to answer, please leave them in the comments down below and I will try to add them in, unless you leave them after I've recorded it, in which case we'll have to answer them next time. But I know some people have been like, hey, where's this video? And I am going to record it. It's just one of those things where it's on my list. But if you have any questions you want to ask me at all about my life or my crafting journey or anything at all, really, just leave them below and I will answer them in that video. And if I don't get them that video, I'll get them next one. So I'll make sure that they are answered. But so here is a quick look at that. And of course I did bring in my sparkle pen and just add a little bit of sparkle on top of the butterflies because I can't help myself and I have to add sparkle to all the things. So that is kind of how that has to go. So this card was a touch of a struggle, I'm going to be honest, because I don't know how I feel about that Stickles gel that came in the kit. So I'm making a mini slimline card, which I like them to be 6 by 6 inches, scored at the 3-inch mark. And then I'm cutting down a piece of HammerMill cardstock as well, and that's going to go as my top layer. And originally I cut this to be about that 1/8 of an inch around because I was just going to have my white base and then my white layer. Excuse me. But I changed my mind later and kind of do this a bit differently. So I have my little HammerMill paper there, and I laid on top because I'm looking at how my layers look. And of course you can't tell, they're monotone at this point, but I brought in that stencil from the kit and I'm going to just kind of tape it down with some purple tape so that it doesn't shift while I'm adding that Stickles gel on top. Now, the Stickles gel, if you haven't used it, this isn't like a mean thing towards the Stickles gel. It's stunning. Like the color and the brightness and the glitter is beautiful. But the consistency is very snot-esque, for lack of a better comparison term. It's just such a weird consistency. So I'm not sure if I like it or not. Like I kind of go back and forth. When it's dry, I really like it. But when I have to actually put it on things, I'm not sure how I feel about it. So I did use it because I think that the glitter is worth it. It's stunning in the end, but it is a bit of an odd consistency. So I used it on this panel, and here you can see I'm just lifting off my stencil. And of course, I have a bathroom off of my studio, so it goes into a sink with warm water right away, and then I don't have to worry about anything getting stuck to it. My palette knife did as well. And then here's where I decided to add a layer to this card. So I brought in some lemon chiffon paper cardstock, from Simon Says Stamp. This did not come in the kit. This is out of my own stash. And then I had to, of course, trim it down my little panel. This is dry at this point. I left and came back a while later. I think I had dinner, so I think it was like an hour or something later. And I trimmed this down a little bit so that I could have that 1/8 of an inch on the border of the mat. But I am also going to use that piece. You see a piece kind of sitting off to the side there. I am also going to heat emboss a sentiment on it. So this is going to be a birthday card for my mom. My mom's birthday is actually today. So happy birthday to my mom. Even though she doesn't watch my videos, so she won't see that. I'll have to give her a call. But it is her birthday today. So this is going to actually be her birthday card. And yellow is her favorite color. So I thought that was pretty fitting. So I'm going to white heat emboss a sentiment out of the stamp set again. I'm pretty sure every card got a stamp set out of this, or a sentiment out of the stamp set. I didn't fussy cut any of them. There was one pattern paper in the kit that had a lot of sentiments on it, but they were all quite small. So you would have needed to use quite a few of them, and I didn't want to do that. So I ended up just white heat embossing this sentiment on that same chiffon cardstock. And I know it's fairly difficult to see. In person, it looks really cool, but the camera, it's a little bit blown out, so you don't quite see it. But in person, it's quite pretty. And same with that Stickles gel. Sadly, the camera doesn't quite do it justice. Like in person, it's quite pretty and it's like really shiny and you can easily see it. And then kind of on camera, it doesn't look that exciting. So I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm still on the fence about that Stickles gel, but at least it's really pretty when it dries. So that's pretty exciting. But I'm just going to fussy cut around this banner here. And I mean, I don't mind fussy cutting. As I've said to you guys before, I fussy cut quite a bit. I don't mind it at all, but I'm pretty sure there's a matching die set for this stamp set, so you could of course purchase that. I don't have it, and I don't generally buy them, to be honest with you. I have to really love the stamp set to buy them because I find the dies to be fairly expensive. So, and I don't mind fussy cutting, so I just have a tendency to fussy cut, but you could, of course, pick up the matching dies and use those instead. So I'm going to adhere my layers down together, and I am going to use my Nuvo Deluxe glue for this. I do kind of jump between my Nuvo Deluxe and my Barely Art glue pretty much on everything that I make, mostly because I use the Nuvo for larger glue needs, and then when I need something really thin or delicate, I'll bring in my Barely Art glue just because I find it easier. But I mean, by all means, whatever your preference is what you could use for sure. And then I did bring in some 3D foam strips or foam squares to add to the sentiment to give it a little bit of dimension. This is a fairly simple card. It's really pretty. It's really shiny and it's got a lot going on in that it's quite sparkly, but it's quite simple as well, which, I mean, isn't a bad thing. I mean, I don't know. I'm a little bit of a more is more style crafter, so I have a tendency to want to add things to everything, but it's not necessary. And I did cut out the last couple of butterflies from that pattern paper, and I'm going to adhere them down the same way that I did on the second card and just kind of prop them up on the wings. And I will add glitter to them as well, just because that's how I roll. This isn't necessary, and you don't have to use the butterflies. I mean, you could have used flowers here as well. That would look quite pretty. You could have done, because there was some sunflowers and flowers on the little piece of cardstock, your piece of pattern paper that you could have trimmed out instead if you preferred that. But butterflies are one of my favorite things and I'm really drawn to them. So I do have a tendency to add them to everything. And I just like the color differentiation too, because you have a little bit of green, a little bit of yellow, and a little bit of pink. And I thought they looked really pretty together. So, and of course I had to add some glitter. So I did bring in my same Spectrum Noir glitter pen and just put it all over the butterflies for a little bit of added shimmer and shine. It's very subtle, but it's quite pretty, so I really like it. And then here I'm going to hold it up. See, here you can see the sun a lot better in person. You can see it way better. Like, it's way more prominent than it is here, but that's okay. It looks pretty in the camera as well. It's just nicer in person, but I'm still on the fence about that glitter gel. I still don't know how I feel about it. I got 2 different colors in a different kit a while ago, so now I have 3 of the 4 colors I think they've released of it, and I'm still not sure how I feel about it. Now this card is a little bit different, I'm going to be honest. It took me a minute, and I kind of was trying for a bit of a more masculine feel for this. And I don't know if I got quite there. Masculine cards are not one of my fortes, so I kind of struggle a little bit, but I'm cutting down another piece of cardstock pattern paper from the kit. And I did have to kind of cut around it because I really only wanted the squares. I didn't want the big white border that was around it. So I also have a piece of black cardstock there, and I'm going to mat that. And then I'm also going to white heat emboss my sentiment on that same black cardstock. And this one just says, "Happy birthday to someone special," which of course also came from the stamp set in the card kit. And I'm using the same alabaster white embossing powder for this. It's one of my preferred white embossing powders. I just find that it's really bright white. Some embossing powders I find when you melt them, they kind of get grainy and odd. And this one never does that. So it's definitely one of my favorites. And then I do bring in my trimmer. I'm going to create a fish banner. I'm not going to do that yet. Apparently I'm going to cut out the balloons first. So I cut out these little balloons from the pattern paper as well. And I am going to fussy cut them again. Again, I don't mind it. You wouldn't have to. You could, of course, stamp your own balloons or have a die and use them that way if you wanted to instead of using this. I just kind of like to use the pattern paper when it has these kind of little ephemera-esque pieces. And I cut out the 5 individual balloons, and then there's one little bundle. I don't end up using the bundle on the front of the card. I end up putting it inside of the card. So I cut it, excuse me, thinking that I would use it on the card, or on the front of the card, sorry, but I don't. I end up using it on the inside of the card. And then this is where I decide that I want to kind of create a fish banner on my sentiment. So I'm going to trim out my sentiment lengthwise, just trimming it down. And then I leave that extra cardstock on the edges. So it's a label now. You could absolutely leave it like this. You don't need to add that kind of fish banner-esque to it, but I just thought it would add a little more visual interest. So I did choose to do that. So I made a little snip in the center of the banner, and then I just bring it in straight from the corner to that center snip, and that kind of gives you that fishtail-esque banner. So I mean, there are dies as well that can do this. I don't own any. I don't own very many dies yet. I'm slowly building up my collection, but I don't own a die. So again, I just cut it, and then I'm going to glue it down flat on the card front. And I kind of tried to center it to the bottom. I mean, I'm trying to line it up in the middle of the card on the lower half. I don't know if I succeed. I think it's off a smidge, but again, I don't know that anybody would notice and or care. And I'm going to add some lines around it later, so I don't know if it will be as noticeable anyways. You guys will have to let me know what you think of this card. It didn't flow the way I thought it was going to. This one was a bit of a struggle, which is funny because the next one was super easy and I think is probably my favorite card, but I struggled a bit with this one. So here I'm just adhering it down, and then I'm going to bring in those balloons and I'm going to add them with thin 3D foam squares on the back of each balloon. And I'm just going to kind of adhere them down. Now, I felt like they looked really weird because they were just kind of floating, and there's not enough of them to really give you the idea of a whole bunch of balloons. So I decide to draw in some lines. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't know if I like it. I'm going to be honest. So I adhered them all down, and then I penciled out some lines, and then I brought in my journaling pen, and I'm just going to add them, and I add a little bow underneath them as well, so the string looks like it's kind of tied on there. And it's not horrible, but I don't know if I like it. And this little green one kind of looks like he's that one balloon that you put helium in and just won't float. He's kind of just lazy. He's just kind of like sagging there because he doesn't really float. And then I had this bright idea where I was going to like attach them to the banner, right? So that's what it would look like. I don't know. You guys will have to tell me what you think, but the lines ended up kind of stealing the design, and I didn't like that. So to kind of fix that and trick your eye a little bit, I brought in my pen again, this journaling pen, and I'm going to draw kind of sketchy lines along the border. And it's honestly just to distract your eye from the lines of the balloons. And I went in and did them twice just because I thought that would look really neat. So I don't hate the card. It's just it's not what I set out to make, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. So I would love to know what you guys think. And then of course I had to bring in the shimmers. This is unnecessary, but I wanted shimmer, so I added it. That's kind of what I did. I don't know. I don't know. I think it kind of turned out neat, but it was not what I intended to make. So that is the 4th card. And then for the 5th card, we are going to jump into my normal style of crafting. There's no pattern paper involved in this one. It's all kind of made by me. So I cut down a piece of black cardstock that's going to be my mat, and then a HammerMill cardstock. And again, it's all the 1/8 of an inch. 1/8 of an inch smaller than my A2 base, and then 1/8 of an inch smaller than my mat. And I'm going to stamp out the kitty with the balloon. This is the stamp set. And of course I had to choose the kitty because we have 5 cats. So we are very much cat lovers in this house. So I am going to stamp that down on another piece of HammerMill cardstock in a Copic Safe ink, which is in this case the Memento Tuxedo Black. And then I'm going to give it a second to dry, and we're going to color it. Now I chose to do grays because I am going to do a fun colorful background for it. So I chose to do grays. So I brought in N1, N3, and N5. And I'm going to give you a really quick look at some Copic coloring. It's not a super in-depth version of my coloring. I get questions about it, so I like to leave it in and show you, although this is not a coloring video. So really, I probably should have cut it out, but I like to show it. You know, like, you can always skip around in the video if you're not interested in something, so completely up to you guys. But I did shade the right-hand side, so that's kind of where I like my shadow to be. So I'm assuming that there is a light source on the right corner, like the right top corner, and I'm creating shadowing to the left hand side, or sorry, the left corner into the right hand side. There's a light source in the left corner and the right hand side is in shadow. Okay. Apparently I don't know what left and right is, but that is kind of my preference. And then anywhere that something sits on top of each other, that's where the shadow is going to be. So like the foot is in front of the body, so the foot would cast a shadow. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. It's not an in-depth video about coloring. I'm literally just kind of giving you a really quick look at it, and this is just kind of what I was thinking there. And then for the background, I brought in 3 of my favorite Distress Oxide ink colors. I have Salvaged Patina, Wilted Violet, and Villainous Potion. And I'm going to blend them across the panel. This is the HammerMill cardstock. And I also brought in a stencil. This is a Spotlight Circle stencil by Waffle Flower. And it's probably one of my favorite stencils. I love it. And it's simple. It's just a circle. But I use it all the time for different cards because I just think it's so cool to put just a vibrant circle of color. But so I'm going to work between those until I am happy with the blend. And I do find that people ask me questions about blending. Honestly, I think one of my biggest tips for blending, if you have a question about it, is domed foams. I find that the domed foams give you a vastly better blend than the flat foams. At least this is my personal experience with them. I find the flat foams, because all the foam touches at the same time, can give you rings. And I don't like that look. And then you have to fight to get them out again. So I do find that the dome foams is like a great help when it comes to that issue. And I did splash on some Perfect Pearls there just to add a little bit of shimmer in the background. And I am going to stamp down the cat onto that panel. This is because I don't want to fussy cut, excuse me, I don't want to fussy cut out the string. Oh, sorry, I'm going to stamp the birthday sentiment first. And this one just says happy birthday. I am going to stamp the cat now. And I've placed it where I want to put the cat that I'm going to fussy cut out. Because, of course, again, I don't own the dies. And I don't want to cut that string. Like, I don't want a white border on this image when I fussy cut it. And I don't want the string to have to be fussy cut out, because that would be fairly difficult. So I stamped it down, and I'm also not going to cut around the whiskers. I'm just going to cut them off. So that allows me to have all those details still in there, but I don't have to fussy cut around the image that I've colored. So that was kind of what I was thinking there, and I am cutting right on the line. Sorry, I'm a little bit out of camera range there. I'm going to move my arm here in a second, but I am cutting kind of on the center of the line that is stamped. Hopefully that makes sense. And this is sped up. Like, this isn't how slowly I'm actually cutting. This is sped up so that you guys aren't sitting here for 20 minutes watching me cut something. So if I'm going to cut on the line, I cut very slowly, and I move the image with my left hand, and I cut with my dominant hand, which in my case is my right hand. And I cut slowly. so that I don't have to worry about cutting too much off and then having to recolor the image that I had just colored. So that's kind of my tip for that, if you guys were interested at all. And then I am going to add some foam squares again behind the cat and the balloon, just to add a little more definition and depth to this card. I did also bring in this is a Copic multi-liner, and I just used it to kind of color along the edges behind the image, so that if there was any areas that I didn't trim out very well because I'm cutting on the black line, this would just kind of hide that so that you wouldn't even really notice. So that's kind of another tip to kind of get away with fussy cutting on the line, which I find is a lot more difficult than leaving a little bit of the border. And now we're just going to line up those images on the where I've stamped them, which I think is actually fairly easy. So I mean, you could have glued them flat and then they would have been a lot easier, but I did choose to prop them up a little bit with that thin 3D foam square just to add a little more dimension, because I thought it would be kind of cute. And then I'm going to bring my Nuvo Deluxe glue back in, and we're going to adhere my layers down. So what do you guys think of these cards? I know that it's supposed to be Christmas in July, but I had to get my June card kit video out. And shockingly enough, my July kit is already here. But I don't want to make cards with it yet because I want July to be Christmas cards. So we'll see when I get my July card kit together. But hopefully I will have it for you maybe the first video in August. Do you guys mind that it's not within the month that the kit actually belongs to? Does that bother anybody? I mean, I think that if you were really interested in buying the kit, you would have done so. So I don't know that my videos necessarily are going to prompt you to buy the kit if you weren't interested in it, but it's always kind of interesting to hear if you guys actually mind that the videos are a little bit late, or if they're, you know, because I don't always get them in time either, right? Because I am Canadian. Sometimes the kits show up like in the next month, depending on how the mail is going for that time. But I am going to have a supervisor right here. She decided that she needed to check out my sequin placement. And this is the only card that got some sequins. So this is actually my husband's birthday card, and he watches my videos, so he's going to know, but it's his birthday on Monday. So my mom's is today, my husband's is on Monday. So I had to make him a card. And because we own a bunch of kitties, and he doesn't mind that I put sparkle on his cards, he's so used to it. I'm like, if you could run around throwing glitter, I would probably do it. I don't do that because then I'd have to clean it up. But if I could, I probably would. I love sparkly things. So that is my 5 cards I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed them. I'd love to know if you have a favorite. I'd love if you'd consider subscribing, leave me a comment, and maybe a like if you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you again very soon. Bye-bye for now.